Shalom. Hello there.
Shalom.
How's everybody doing today? Welcome to the next installment of the counting of the Omer. Today is day 35 or day 7 of week 4 of the counting of the Omer. Let's say this blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitchanu b'mitzvotav, titzvanu al separat ha'omer. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us by his commandments and commanded us about the counting of the Omer. Amen. All right. So, we are back over in Exodus, where we've been looking at the time between the leaving of Egypt and the arrival at Mount Sinai. We are in Exodus chapter 16 today, and I'm going to do my best to read the chapter first.
So I'm going to be...
And she's going to probably have to do that to me. But we're going to try to get through this and share some of these insights from this sequence where we are getting the manna and the quail. But also notice this is the first instance of an omer being received or counted or measured in the scriptures. So it says, they journeyed on from Elim, and the entire community of Bnei Israel came to the wilderness of Sin. Excuse me, which is between Elim and Sinai on the 15th day of the second month after leaving the land of Egypt. But the whole congregation of Bnei Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Bnei Israel said to them, if only we had died by the hand of Adonai in the land of Egypt, where we sat by pots of meat, and when we ate bread until we were full. But you have brought us into the wilderness to kill this entire congregation with hunger. Then Adonai said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. The people will go out and gather a day's portion every day, so that I can test them to find out whether they will walk according to my Torah or not. So on the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gathered day by day. So Moses and Aaron said to all Bnei Israel, in the evening you will know that Adonai has brought you out from the land of Egypt, and in the morning then you will see the glory of Adonai, for he heard your complaining against him. What are we? You complain against us? Then Moses said, Adonai will give you meat to eat in the evening and enough bread to fill you in the morning, since Adonai hears your complaints that you mutter against him. What are we? Your complaining is not against us, but against Adonai. Moses said to Aaron, say to all the congregation of Bnei Israel, come near before Adonai, because he has heard your complaining. Then as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of Bnei Israel, they looked toward the wilderness, and the glory of Adonai appeared in the cloud. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, I have heard the complaining of Bnei Israel. Speak to them, saying, at dusk you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am Adonai your God. And so when evening fell, quails came up and covered the camp. Moreover, in the morning there was a layer of dew all around the camp. When the layer of dew was gone, on the surface of the desert was a thin flake-like frost, as fine as the frost on the ground. When Bnei Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. Then Moses said to them, it is the bread that Adonai has given you to eat. This is the word that Adonai has commanded. Every man is to gather according to his needs an omer per person, according to the number of people per household. Each man is to take it for those who are in his tent. So Bnei Israel did so, and some gathered more, some less. When they measured it with an omer, those who gathered more had nothing left over, and those that gathered less did not lack at all. Every man gathered according to his appetite. Also Moses said to them, let no one save any of it until the morning. However, they did not listen to Moses. Some of them preserved it until the morning, but it bred worms and rotted. So Moses was angry with them. So they gathered it morning by morning, each man according to his needs, and as the sun became hot, it melted. On the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each individual. So all the leaders of the community came and informed Moses. But he said to them, this is what Adonai has said, tomorrow, is a Shabbat rest, a holy Shabbat to Adonai. Bake whatever you would bake, and boil whatever you would boil. Store up for yourselves everything that remains, to be kept until the morning. So they set it aside until the morning, just as Moses instructed, and it did not rot, nor were there any worms. Then Moses said, Eat that today, because today is a Shabbat to Adonai. Today you will not find it in the field. You are to gather it for 6 days, but the 7th day is a Shabbat, and there will be none. Yet on the 7th day some of the people went out to gather, and they found none. Adonai said to Moses, How long will you refuse to keep my mitzvot and my Torah? See, Adonai has given you the Shabbat, so on the 6th day he gives you the bread of 2 days. Let every man stay at his place, and let no man go out on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. The house of Israel named it Manna. It was white like coriander seed, and tasted like wafers made with honey. Then Moses said, This is what Adonai has commanded. Let a full omer of it be kept throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread with which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out from the land of Egypt. Moses said to Aaron, Take a jar and put a full omer of manna inside. Store it up before Adonai to be kept throughout your generations. Just as Adonai commanded Moses, Aaron stored it up in front of the testimony to be preserved. Bnei Israel ate the manna for 40 years. They ate the manna until they came to an inhabited land, and when they came to the borders of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is the 10th part of an ephah. It says about 2 dry quarts. So, you got anything to say about that?
Well, let's start at the beginning, shall we? So, when do they enter the desert of Sin? Between Elam and Sinai. When do they enter it? Verse 1.
On the 15th day of the 2nd month after leaving the land of Egypt.
So they've been out of Egypt. Well, they left their homes in Egypt a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it has taken them 1 month to get to this location. And they're just now running out of bread. They're running out of bread, or they've just recently run out of bread, and they are hungry.
The supplies that they would have been able to bring with them when they left.
Right.
In other words.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here they are, and it's been a month. And they're starting to get hungry. And they complain about not having bread, and even start to say, why did you bring us out of Egypt? Back in Egypt, we had plenty to eat.
Sure.
Right? Again, doubt setting in of, did we do the right thing? Did we do the right thing? Should we go back, or should we stay with Moses? Right?
That's a significant question.
That's a very significant question. Because even in our walk with Yeshua, in coming to faith in Yeshua, doubts can creep in.
Yes,
right?
they can.
But we continue and we press on. That's the importance of pressing on, as Paul talks about in Philippians. We press on toward the mark, right?
The goal, the prize.
For which he has called us heavenward.
And it's not as if the sea is going to open back up and let them go back.
No.
That's not the way that they can't really turn back. There's no going back to the life that they had before.
No.
Just like Noah couldn't go back on the other side of the flood, as much as he might have missed, not that I can imagine he would, but he could not go back to what the world was before the flood. And so that's the significance of our immersion, our mikvah, in the name of Messiah Yeshua, is that we need to understand that there's no going back. You can't really go back to the life that you were before, because it's never going to be the same. You can't be the same person that you were before coming to faith.
So, here we have Moses and the Israelites. They're hungry, and the people start to complain against who?
Well, they think they're complaining against Moses.
Yeah. Moses and even Aaron. And Moses is like, what are you complaining to me for? I don't have any control over this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not your provider.
Yeah.
Right? You're actually grumbling against Adonai. God is testing the Israelites to see if, number one, if they will obey him, and number two, if they trust him for their provision no matter what. No matter what. Even if they die out in that wilderness, is he still their God? Are they glad they followed him and obeyed him?
I mean, if not everything works out the way I'd like it to, is God still faithful?
Diana.
Yes, he is. He is sufficient in all these things. Even if things don't go the way we would like, even if things don't happen as soon as we would like them to, he is still providing, and he still has in mind exactly what he's going to do.
And we're not trying to say that those hard times aren't hard, because they can be very hard. They can be very, very hard. There are horrible things going on in our world right now. There's a massacre going on in Nigeria and Sudan, and not to mention the things that other nations are doing around the world. And then there's Hamas, who wants to kill all the Jews, no matter where they're at, whether they're in Israel or anywhere else. So, yes, is there evil in this world? Yes, there is. Is it hard to persevere? It would have to be. But God is still God.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that's real easy to say sitting right here in a nice, comfortable building. But that just be a reminder for all of us that we need to be praying for our brothers and sisters who are going through those types of things, because people still go through those things.
And we also need to know and realize that when we start complaining or we start blaming other people for other things that are happening and going on, we're really blaming God for these things. We're really complaining against him in these situations. We're not really trusting him. We're not really obeying him. That's ultimately what it comes down to in our complaints. Can we cry out to God?
Absolutely.
That's different. You can cry out to God without complaining.
Mm-hmm. And you can have questions without doubting.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between Zechariah in Luke chapter 1 and Mary in Luke chapter 1.
Mm-hmm.
They ask the same question.
How can this be? Since my wife and I are both old and past childbearing, or at least his wife was, and Mary asked the question, how can this be? How can I be pregnant with the Messiah since I've never been with a man before? They both asked the same question. But the angel responded very differently to both of them asking the question, because one of them believed what the angel said and the other one didn't.
Mary just wanted to know, okay, so how's this supposed to happen?
Is there anything I have to do?
Is there anything I'm supposed to do?
Yeah.
How's this going to happen? So.
Whereas Zechariah didn't really believe it, and he was not able to speak until his son was born, and he named him John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're really complaining against God, and I can imagine it would be pretty scary out there in the wilderness. I mean, it's not like there's any local Walmart or grocery store around, right?
They see no resources.
You're out in the wilderness, and you've got millions of people with you, and even if you were to slaughter all your animals, how long is that going to last? Not to mention, they were supposed to have those animals with them for the sacrifices, the offerings, that they didn't know what all they were going to have to do yet. So where's all this food coming from? And if you saw your children going hungry and crying themselves to sleep because they're hungry, or as you're walking, thinking in your head, we're now out of bread, and you start to hear your children's stomachs growl, and they're hungry and they're walking, and it's hot, but you've got the shade from the pillar of cloud. God's with you, but you're getting scared. You're getting scared with the possibility of no food. So.
And so with that, God does come through and he does provide for them.
Mm-hmm.
He provides the quail in the evening so they can have some meat to eat. And then he also provides what came to be known as manna, the bread from heaven, the bread that was there on the ground in the mornings as the dew was evaporating.
So basically they're getting their protein and their starch.
Yes, in many ways.
Right?
But, this, and for 40 years, they were getting this bread. And it was a daily bread. So when Yeshua talks about in Matthew chapter 6 in the model prayer, give us this day our daily bread, this is a picture of the manna in the wilderness.
Yes.
That we are trusting him completely to provide us even the basics, even the necessities of things. And so it's also a picture of our loyalty to him to receive his provision.
Absolutely.
That we are wanting to receive from him even the basics. What struck me, it wasn't even that long ago, a year or two ago maybe, the idea of the blessing, to bless, Baruch, also carries with it the idea of kneeling, or causing one to kneel as if you are kneeling and bowing before your sovereign, before your king. And what struck me about this is, where is the manna?
On the ground.
It's on the ground. In order for them to collect it, what do they have to do?
Bow.
They have to bow. They have to bend the knee and get down on the ground to receive his provision and his gift of the bread. And so, in essence, they are bowing every day before him to receive this bread, and that's a sign of obedience to him, is what it's supposed to be. And then on the seventh day, it doesn't come at all, but the day before he provides the double amount. So
it kind of makes you wonder the idea of bowing and humbling ourselves before God, and then that idea of Baruch. It makes you wonder, it's like, okay, so when did they start saying Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, right? Hamotze lechem min haaretz. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread
from the earth.
Right? So is that when they started doing that? Because they're bowing, they're bowing as they say Baruch.
And for 40 years.
Thank you for bringing this bread from the earth, this dew that's on this earth as I bow and I collect it. Thank you, because they did nothing. They didn't sow. They didn't harvest. They just collected.
Mm-hmm. And an entire generation grew up in the wilderness with this pattern every day, every week. And so that's one of those things. Some people have made the claim that the Israelites lost track of the seventh day, of exactly when the Sabbath.
Yeah, I was thinking of this too.
When the Sabbath is, while they were slaves in Egypt. They weren't allowed to necessarily do everything that they wanted to do. They had a rule or an authority above them that would have prevented them. So potentially, that pattern of the seventh day could have been lost. Okay, I can understand that. But if that were the case, God reset this. And every 7 days, they knew exactly which one the Sabbath was, because on that day, not any of the bread came out.
And it's not a matter of them forgetting. Did God forget when the Shabbat was?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he knows exactly what his calendar and his itinerary is.
So yeah, God always knew, and so he reset that, and they had to collect double. Like double on the sixth day, preparation day. That's the whole idea of preparation day. You got to prep, because you can't come out here and get any on Shabbat.
And so again, that pattern that we've said about the Jewish people before, they have often a tangible or a practical element or lesson in order to teach the spiritual truth.
Right.
This is very much what's going on. He is showing them and demonstrating them in a tangible manner and way about the Sabbath. And so they physically have to go out and do something, and then physically not do something. So that would have been ingrained in their mind, especially in the children who grew up out there in the wilderness and knew nothing else.
Yeah.
And
so they're counting the omer, right? They're counting how much they're collecting, because they're not supposed to collect too much or too little. There's a certain amount for every person that they're collecting for, and everybody always had enough.
Mm-hmm.
God knew exactly how much to give.
Mm-hmm.
So there was never too much or too little.
And I'm sure, if they did collect too much, or if they did try to keep it till morning, it turned into worms. It rotted.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody got to see what that looked like at least once. It was like, oh, that's pretty nasty stuff.
Well, it's amazing that even after God gives these specific directions, people are still like, they didn't believe him.
Mm-hmm. They tested the Lord and didn't take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So all those people who say, well, if God would only speak clearly, if he would just say it directly, then I'll believe in him, then I'll obey him.
Doesn't work that way.
No, you won't. If they don't have a heart to obey, even if a voice from heaven comes down, they're still gonna say, well, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm gonna buy that. So
that's right. Yeah. So what is it? They didn't know what it was. It had a distinct flavor. I talk with my hands, dear.
Well, you don't have to hit the table with your hands.
To hit the table.
I'm trying not to. I keep kicking the table.
So yeah, it had a distinct flavor, and they were able to do all kinds of things with it. They could boil it, they could bake it. So it was something they could do different things with. They just didn't pick it up and eat it directly all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it says they ate this manna until they came into an inhabited land. That's in the days of Joshua yes. Chapter 5, when they're going in and crossed over, and they start to take and eat of the produce of the land for the first time. Mm-hmm. That's when all of this stopped. So I think he proved his consistency and his faithfulness over those 40 years, much more so than the people did.
It's amazing that in the model prayer, it's Our Father who is in heaven. Your name be honored as holy. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. That's the first thing after that statement of your will being done on earth as it is in heaven. And basically this chapter opens up with God saying, after they complain, right? If you will do my will on earth as it is in heaven and obey me, right? Mm-hmm. Then I will give you your daily bread.
Yeah. And to me, that's also a statement about, there's so many people that debate, well, God's promises, and the whole idea of the millennial kingdom and such like that. Well, is it symbolic? Is it something else? Is it just a metaphorical, and it's not really going to happen here on earth? And yet, for the promises not to take place here on earth, for them not to be fulfilled on earth, the expectation and the understanding of the Jewish people that this is going to be on earth. That statement from the model prayer is reflective of that.
Yes.
And this is going to be on earth, the kingdom, the Davidic kingdom being lived out. And again, very tangible and practical things, not some distant ethereal idea of something, but a very tangible thing. And if he doesn't do that, if he actually doesn't fulfill these things on earth as he has promised, what does that do to him?
As he has
promised?
As he has promised.
Mm-hmm.
So God promised
land,
us,
territory, borders, numbers.
If God promised, then it's a done deal.
Mm-hmm. And if it is abstract, if it is just symbolic, what that really ends up doing is it makes him a liar. That he is not keeping his word.
If our eternity is in heaven and not on this earth, with heaven coming down and the New Jerusalem coming down, then
that creates another problem.
That creates a huge problem, because God promised here.
Yes, he did. So, anything else to add on this chapter?
I don't think so. Just the idea really of, let's not refuse to obey his commands and his Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not be that kind of people. And let us put our trust in him for his provision.
Mm-hmm. Even in the midst of our struggles, even in the midst of our uncertainties, he is still going to prove himself faithful.
Amen.
All right, so with that, y'all have a good day, a good counting of the Omer, and we will see you again.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.